What does that mean now? Okay? That means at the same time, simultaneously though, every teacher always has more than they can possibly give the student. The student is able to grasp what the teacher gives, but there's always more in the teacher than there is in any student. The student's challenge is to go beyond what they've been taught and make up that difference as best as they can. Therefore, in this sense, the highest term stands independent of all of the others because of that difference and that difference of profundity. So therefore, let's add to that and say the first term, the highest term, therefore, not only has a unity which moves through the entire order, but correspondingly it remains independent of it and above it, while at the same time extending itself throughout the entire series. Let's take a look at the mean term. All right, the mean term. What is it doing? Well, on the most interesting level, it's standing as the middle, and it's taking something it received and it's passing it on to something else. Therefore, it stands as a mediator between the two, and it's both a receiver, it receives, and it gives, doesn't it? Necessarily. There it is. It's between the two. It's between the two. It receives the teaching. Let's put Diotima in here now. D, right? Socrates, Agathon, so I can then address it much more, right? Which is the same thing as this statement. Right. What does it do? It can reach out to both, right? And it can therefore generate something creatively. It implants in all, see? Socrates, therefore, is able, therefore, to take what is taught and pass it on to the other. And therefore, he's both receives and he gives. And therefore, he makes the unity complete. He makes it a complete order because he's passing it on through the entire thing. He's the intermediary, and he's therefore sometimes called, right? That which judiciously serves the purpose of preserving the teaching in all its purity and passing it on to the other, and therefore he's a mediator. And therefore that middle position is the mediator. All right? Now, as the mediator then, he brings therefore something interesting. He's able then to link. He's able to link together. Into a unity. So he does the linking. Now, take a look at the last term. The last term is agathon. Now, I want to use one word, likeness, for a moment, okay? What is the principle of likeness, and how does it fit into an analogy? In any analogy, right, A is to B as C is to D, or a shepherd is to his sheep, right? As a ruler is to his subjects, right? All likenesses are made by contrasting the first and the third terms and the second and the fourth, and using the word like to express the relationship. Therefore, a shepherd is like a ruler is like a shepherd, subjects are like sheep in some way are like subjects, see, like. Therefore, when God in the time is reported to express the thought that the most supreme originating principle of the universe is that he wants to bring about a likeness between himself and all that is created, that likeness again presupposes in the very nature and the core of reality the property of analogy. Right? Now, therefore, the last term is a key term because agathon has to become in turn like Socrates. Socrates, in turn, has to become like Diotima. It goes backwards now. Therefore, the last term reverts back to the original position, or the original premise, or the original knowledge, or generating idea, in order to bring about that likeness, and through that brings about a convergence. Right? Brings about a convergence. Why a convergence? Because The last term then, Agathon is going to become like Socrates through this teaching. Right? Therefore, by reverting back to the original principle that started it all, he is now going to be like this figure, and through this figure is going to be most distantly like Diotima herself. There combines in himself both extremes and brings about this unifying aspect all into, not into reality, because this is only a potential. Right? So therefore he's able to awaken a potentiality in himself, and to the degree that he can awaken that potentiality, he can then bring into being, right, the potential that lied dormant within him. Well, if that's the dynamic behind a mean analogy, right, if that's the dynamic, then the whole thing and all of its transformations is showing a transformative quality of turning upon itself again and again. Therefore, the very tool of creation being a mean analogy, God has chosen the very intellectual model which in itself presents a creative synthesis where all of the potentialities of the last term are then materialized, and that potentiality then emerges as it moves across till finally succeeding in bringing the divine into realization, which is the goal of creation. Ah. So, this is only possible in a view of reality where a fundamental goodness is allowed to permeate itself out through all creation. Therefore, this process notice now, this process that the Creator went through and which we must go through if we decide to use this as a model for meditation, this very process awakens all of these kinds of activities in respect to our own turning upon ourselves. Therefore, if it were not for this creation, these qualities would be dormant in the mind of God. Therefore, God needs creation to exercise the creative function. Therefore, there always has been a creation. There never will be a time when there wasn't any creation, because the overflowing will of God must be creative, and being creative, it exercises all of these qualities. Therefore, there must be built into the system the idea that creation is unending, for God's mind must be continuously on itself, since the cosmos itself is evolving. If it's evolving, then that entire process must be going on simultaneously, and the idea in the mind of God being a simultaneous whole must then break down in the creation, and that's where time comes in, you see? Because when you have an idea that's a simultaneous whole brought into a unity, all together, no differentiation, that's the meaning of the term eternity. That's what eternity is, a simultaneous whole. Therefore, going from the model to its copy, eternity becomes a copy. The copy of eternity is time, for time is a moving image of eternity. That's what it is. It's a process. The process of eternity, as it proceeds into its creative function and bringing about a copy, transforms itself into time. Three properties of time, past, present, and future, is an unending process, and it is nothing other than an unfolding of eternity in sequential developments. Therefore, the idea in the mind of God